Welcome back. Now, the federal government has dashed hopes of the development of a local vaccine to combat the coronavirus pandemic in Nigeria. Minister of Health Asaje Hanire has explained that the local production of the COVID-19 vaccine is not yet feasible due to the high cost of conducting clinical trials. The minister said this while reacting to a statement made by Professor of Virology and Chairman of Expert Review Committee on COVID-19, Oyewole Tomori, who said some individuals are suppressing local manufacturing of vaccines because of their personal interest. Now, the minister denied that, basically saying the country hasn't got the money to handle local production of vaccine at the moment. And let's just take a lesson now to the Minister of Health's response to that allegation now by Professor Tomori.
There are at least two, perhaps even three, Nigerian organizations that have laboratories that have developed what you call vaccine candidate. We're also talking to a fourth Nigerian laboratory based in Maryland, USA. He has also produced his own vaccine candidate. A vaccine candidate means that you have already been able to get the antigen, you have worked with it, and you have produced something that will work. Now, you have to do what is called the clinical trials. Clinical trial means you go through testing it, that it's safe. First of all, it's safe, does it cause a problem? Secondly, that it does what it promises to do, generate antibodies in your system. One of our researchers here who has produced such a candidate vaccine, I asked him, how much do you think you will need to go through these clinical trials, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3? At least 1.56 million US dollars. That's a lot. Do we have that now to test a vaccine? Well, we say we look for sources where we can get the sponsors.
Well, let's now discuss this further. I'm now being joined on the program by Professor Philip Njamanze, who is a public health expert. And Prof, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Listening to the minister there, he said we have a candidate vaccine, so to speak, that a Nigerian has developed one, but it still has to go through clinical trials. And he's talking about the cost of these clinical trials, saying it will cost somewhere in the region of $1 to $1.5 million, you know, talking about the stages and all of that, and saying it's quite expensive. But, you know, in the face of what we are dealing with, would $1.5 million, even $2 million, would it be too much to spend to try a local drug that could cure COVID-19? Even if that clinical trial does not result in something positive, we could not at the end of the day say that money has been wasted.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I must congratulate the Nigerians who have come up with candidate vaccines. This is a laudable thing. And even if we are to raise that to $10 million, which will cost for a clinical trial, that's not so much. We waste more than $10 million in some of the things we do in this country. Yeah, so actually, I think the minister it has left his area basically of expertise. If we were to consult the people in finance, there is what you call crowdfunding. And crowdfunding means everybody who is interested puts up a small amount of money. It can be as small as 10,000 naira. And if you have that amount and you have 1 million people giving 10,000 naira, you know what it will be. It will be significant to carry out all the clinical trials you need for each of the candidate vaccine. Mm-hmm. So that's the platform that is used. It's used as crowdfunding. So it goes to the PPP. Once the ministry says, well, we have put a group of experts together and we think that this is a potential candidate vaccine, then it leaves that stage and goes into the PPP arrangement and goes to crowdfunding. So the crowdfunding should be able to come up with the money, even if it's $10 million, because everybody has at stake very, very little amount to lose, even if it's not successful. So I think if we have candidate vaccines, it will be very, very easy to raise that $1.5 million if it's so required.
Because what the minister has said, it essentially means it's like this project is dead on arrival just because we can't raise that $1.5 million is too much. Look, even without the PPP arrangement, this is something that I think look, if the government decides to invest in this, it wouldn't be a bad idea. I mean, imagine what it would mean, for instance, if Nigeria is able to develop, a homegrown vaccine. And should that happen, we know that no other African country has done that, would obviously be the first. And it's certainly not, it certainly would not be a waste of resources.
Not at all. You're absolutely right. It's not at all. And even more importantly, this is a national security issue, because the danger of relying on outside vaccine, it is considerably dangerous, because just with one vaccine, you can eliminate the whole population of Nigeria. Just by tinting a vaccine with something you don't wish it should have. So it is a national security issue. Buying vaccines from other countries is you're betting on a very, very thin rope. So if we have our own homegrown vaccine, we are actually having double assurance. It is a national security matter. It's more important to invest in the vaccine than investing even in weapons to buy more modern weapons for our military, because the vaccine can wipe out the entire population, whereby it will take a lot for anybody to wipe out Nigeria militarily. So I think it is something that they should not minimize. But even if they were saying that we are constrained, let us take it to the PPP. Let it be a business arrangement. And Nigerians are very, very apt. So they are going to come up with something. I think they have to put it to the Nigerian people and be facilitators, because why I wouldn't want government funding of everything is that government has its own baggage. So if let's say it's taken into a PPP arrangement, then there will be a lot of initiative. Whenever they are not coming up or running short of any funds, the entrepreneurs can meet with the investors and then raise the funds that are necessary to move the industry forward.
Let me ask you your take on the vaccine situation across the world today. And of course, Africa is at the receiving end. As we speak today, we're struggling. We're just looking for vaccine everywhere, and we just can't find. And of course, because India, as we know, needs more of these vaccines because of the situation in that country. What we're expecting, we're not even sure when our next batch of vaccines would come. How do you explain this kind of situation where, out the other side of the world, I'm talking about the developed world now, have more than a stockpile of what it needs, and here we're struggling to find just one?
Yeah, well, actually, but let us put it in the correct perspective. We are not in the pandemic belt. Nigeria is not in the pandemic belt. There is a clear-cut pandemic belt between 30 degrees north and 50 degrees north latitude. So since we are not in the pandemic belt, yeah, you can give vaccine. Vaccine can form one of our strategies of prevention. Yeah, it is not an essential strategy of prevention.
So you think the reason why the world is not so much bothered about we getting this vaccine is because we're not in the pandemic belt?
Well, I wouldn't say that they are giving us any form of consideration. I don't think they will act differently even if we were in the pandemic belt. That's my honest opinion. But actually, and this really emphasizes why we should look for our own national interest and get our own indigenous vaccines. The world got vaccines from Africa. The very first vaccines developed were developed in Africa by the African slaves, if you go to the history of it. So we have the intelligence, the know-how to do this. And it will be very, very, very in our national interest to make sure, not just for this pandemic, but for future pandemics, to make sure that we have that capability to produce our own national vaccines.
Professor Njamanze, thank you very much for joining us on the program and for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you as always. Now, just before we go, a final word on the ongoing constitution amendment process in the country. Since 1999, we have dispensed enormous resources and energy amending our Constitution. Now, there's nothing wrong with amending the Constitution. What is rather wrong and makes no sense to me is why amend the Constitution that you do not plan to respect and act according to its prescriptions. To my mind, there isn't so much wrong with our current Constitution. The problem is us. We do not obey or act as the Constitution dictates. And typical of our blame culture, when things go wrong, we lay the blame on the document. In all honesty, can we say that we have implemented even up to 30% of our Constitution as it is today? The answer is a categorical no. So we're busy amending a document we have not really tested to the letters. Which of the provisions of the Constitution do we really follow to the letter without abusing it? We must realize that the Constitution is only a document that cannot enforce itself unless it is given life to by human beings, and in this case, Nigerians. Today, our Constitution clearly spells out the role and functions of local government administrations in this country. But what do we have in practice? The country's judiciary is currently grounded because of the refusal of state governors to allow for financial autonomy for the judiciary, something that is clearly spelled out in the Constitution. Could we blame that on the Constitution itself? Again, our Constitution and laws clearly stipulate the tenure of appointees of government agencies. But what do we have? Across a number of government agencies, we see appointees who have exceeded their terms of office and continue to operate. Do we blame that on the Constitution as well? I feel what we need to cure ourselves of is our penchant for abusing our Constitution and laws. It's good to amend the Constitution, but it's better and most important to amend our behavior. That is where our problem lies. No amount of amendment will fundamentally change anything if we do not change. I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.